Welcome to Spiritual Talk with Christy, Godwin, and Friends, an authentic podcast where we sit and discuss all things spiritual. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Christy Godwin. Welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Talk with Christy, Godwin, and Friends. I have Renee Shull here. Thank you so much for being here, Renee.
Thank you, Christy, for having me. It's awesome.
I'm so excited to have Renee here to talk about hoarding. And I know people instantly think of all the shows, which we'll get to that. Renee has a fabulous YouTube channel with some of those videos on it. But there's some underlying causes to hoarding, and it's really an unhealthy environment. It's frustrating for the family members watching someone they love get themselves in that condition. So we're going to talk with Renee about that. But real quick, I do want to talk about, and it will be in the notes of this podcast, so you don't have to write it down for everyone listening. You can contact Renee. She has a email account. It's Renee Shull at gmail.com. So no dots or anything, just Renee Shull. No, it's Shull Renee.
Thank you.
It's Shull Renee. She was about to correct me. I looked down at my notes. That's why I have notes, people, to keep me on track. Okay, Shull, ShullRenee at Gmail. But again, don't worry about writing it down. It will be in the notes of this podcast. She has a YouTube channel, Renee Shull. I've watched those videos. They are fascinating, watching the before and after. It's so rewarding to watch that happen. Also, this is not really on the podcast, but y'all have to check out. She has a account. It's a website, and it's Shull Set Sail, also on YouTube. Don't you have a YouTube account with the Shull Set Sail?
I do, yep.
Okay. And they are going to be taking a trip on a sailboat, and you get to go with them and the things that happen, what's going to occur. I'm so excited for that trip.
And so it's a cruise ship, and it's for 9 months around the world.
Can you imagine being on a cruise ship? And how beautiful that y'all get to do that. That's awesome. Okay. So now we're going to talk about hoarding, and how did you get into that first?
Good question. I just love to clean and help people, and just like you said, to see the before and after, and just gives me a sense of accomplishment that I'm helping people get clean and organized, and then they can have a clutter-free house, which makes a clutter-free mind.
Isn't that true? In my life coaching, according to where people are, but one of the things I will have people do is sometimes it's overwhelming. And I'm not talking about a hoarding environment. I'm talking about people that just have some clutter around their house, to every day go through their house and get rid of 5 things instead of just being overwhelmed. And it allows energy to flow more freely whenever you have just free space instead of all this clutter everywhere. So now, do you remember the first place you ever did?
Probably my bedroom as a kid. I shared a room with my sister, and we just trashed it. And it's like, oh, I got to clean this up, and cleaned it up. And I'm like, this is very nice. Cleaned out all the dresser drawers, took out all the old clothes that I wasn't wearing. And
now, is your house pristine like that? Is everything in its place in your house?
Everything it's in its place, color coded, marked, labeled.
Now, for those of you watching, I had invited Renee to, I was like, come see me in Nebraska. She just has to promise to not open any closet doors. Now, what do you see being the major causes of hoarding when you are called in? And I'm talking now, for those watching and listening, I'm talking major hoarding, closet can't walk through the house because there's so much junk.
So usually I see it as generational hoarding. They just don't know what to get rid of, the stuff that has been passed down from generation to generation. And we just inherit all of it from our deceased family members. We get overwhelmed about the obligation and just the guilt. Am I throwing this away, so I'm throwing that person away? Or do I need to keep it because they wanted me to keep it? And so then they end up with homes and storage units and spaces just full of decade-old items that really serve no purpose for them. And they also tend to have no real value. So my mom passed away January of last year, and she was a collector hoarder. And she had like over 200 Barbies and dozens of teapots and yardsticks and matchbooks, and none of them had any value. And it took 11 days to clean her house up and get it ready for the estate sale. And that's working 4 in the morning to 11 at night every day to get it ready. And I think we made over $5,000, but there was so much left over that we ended up getting 2 dumpsters to just get rid of it. But just the guilt and obligation of going through it and getting rid of it, it felt like I was throwing my mom away, but I wasn't. It was just her
Right.
generations of hoarding.
And you think about it, I know you said you made $5,000, and yes, that's a lot of money, but in the whole scheme of things, it's not.
No.
When you think about how much she probably paid for all of that stuff, how much
Mhm.
energy and space it took up in her home, it was certainly not worth the $5,000.
No. And it wasn't worth your mental health either. Forget the money,
Um,
just dealing with it night and day, and being either frustrated or mad at her that she left this for you to deal with.
And I do want to, of course, I'm a psychic medium, and my business
Mhm.
is, I also have life coaching. But when I bring forward past loved ones, I have never, in the thousands and thousands of spirits I have read, had them care about what people do with their stuff, whether even their
Mhm.
ashes. I can't tell you how many people will ask me, what do they say about their ashes? The only thing I heard a person care the other day is it was someone had lost their spouse, and he had stepped
Mhm.
up, and she's like, what does he want me to do with the ashes? I said, he doesn't care, but they had young children. He is just
Mm.
saying to save a vial for them for when they get older.
Okay.
I said, otherwise he doesn't care. Do what makes you happy, do what fulfills you. And that's what I hear from spirits, is they don't care what happens to their stuff.
No.
I will have people, spirits step up, and I will say to their client, so they're saying you haven't gotten rid of their clothes yet, and it's okay to do that. Like, that's what I hear them saying.
Mhm.
Get rid of that stuff. It doesn't matter. I don't need it.
Yeah. And one of the major perks of death, I don't know if the spirits come through and tell you, is that they don't have to clean up after themselves after they die. It's left for someone else to do.
I do have them, honestly, have them come forward and apologize for messes they left behind.
Mhm.
They will apologize for not having paperwork together. That is a huge one. So please, anyone watching this, listening to this, get your paperwork in order. No one wakes up in the morning and says, today's the day I'm going to pass. Yeah, especially when you're
Yeah.
younger. But so many issues have happened over paperwork not being in order.
Mhm.
And on that note, y'all have to see. I had no note to talk about it later, but this is a nice segue. Renee has this phenomenal folder she just showed me. Show it to us, Renee.
So it is a medical book, and in it has all the emergency phone numbers. So in case something happens, your doctors and when the next visits are, um, allergies and reactions, because when you're dealing with your parents or loved ones, you don't know this stuff.
Right.
What medications they're on, surgeries that they've had, vital signs, social history, have they smoked, done illegal drugs, any medical conditions that's ongoing, patient decision aids. So when was their last dental cleaning? When was their last physical? When was their last mammogram? Their vaccines, um, their dental records. Do they have a partial? Do they have dentures? And then just the rest of the lab reports. And so I developed this with my help with my sister, and for a medical book for my mom. And then I've since done it for myself and my husband. So if we chose to have an accident, if we had an accident or died, the paperwork is right there that the kids can access immediately.
Yes. Now, how could they get a copy of that, Renee?
They can email me and I'll send them a copy, no problem. A blank
Very
copy,
good.
of course.
It will be, again, it's shawlrenee@gmail, but it will be
Mhm.
in the verbiage attached to this YouTube or the podcast, wherever you're listening or
Mhm.
watching it at. And, just from me talking to people that have transitioned, please, I know it's not sexy. This is the stuff I call that's not sexy, the paperwork, the getting the wills
Mhm.
together, but please do it. And I was just telling Renee, I made an appointment yesterday for a mammogram, and the lady was like, when was the last time you had one? I don't know. I couldn't even
Right.
remember my own medical stuff.
And if you were in an accident, the kids aren't going to know either, or other family
No.
members are like, we don't know.
Right. You know, and I do have an allergy to a certain medication, but I bet if you ask my kids, they don't know
Mhm.
because it's not something that's discussed. They're not in the doctor's office with me when the doctor says, "Do you have any allergies to any medications?" And I
Mhm.
say, "Yes, this." They're not with me, so they don't know.
No. And then I actually did a book like this for my neighbor up the street who's 87, and it sits on his coffee table. And the ambulance has been called 3 times for him, and they know the book is right there and what's going on. And I
Oh my
keep it updated.
goodness. Yes, please, please, anyone listening to this, please do that for your family members. Do that, get your wills together, make your transition, make taking care of you easy for them.
Mhm.
Now, on this generational hoarding, whenever you see that people, do you see people start it in this lifetime instead of bringing their own stuff from, keeping their parents? Do you see that something will I don't want to say misfire in someone's brain, but they will start maybe holding on to things to fulfill something that's missing from their heart? Do you ever see that?
Absolutely. So usually they've had some type of trauma or something that maybe someone's passed, and they're just like, how do I deal with this? Do I keep the all of their belongings? I've had she kept her mom's clothes for 3 years, and she's just like, well, I'll wear them someday. She's not the same size or anything, but she hoarded her entire closet of clothes. And
But now, how do you start with that, Renee? How do you help people walk down that path of releasing that attachment?
so I I ask them if they want to pass this on to their kids if they have kids, because I go through the same thing like I do with the book. If you were to die today and your daughter or son is left with your mother's clothes or their grandparents' clothes, what are they going to do? Why do you want to burden them with that? And basically, I tell them what you have here is just relics of and glorified trash for your mom. That's not, and I don't say the word trash,
Right, right,
um,
absolutely, yes.
but it's okay to get rid of it. And I ask them to take a picture of things that they absolutely want to keep, but they don't have the room because they've already got 2 storage shed fulls of stuff. And then they later on they tell me that they took a picture, but they never looked at it again. It
Yes.
was just the fact that they had it
And I
and that they
will,
could always refer to it.
you mentioned storage units a couple of times, and I do want to touch on that. But I had a girlfriend who, her and her husband own a couple of storage facilities.
Mhm.
And talking to her, it's always funny the way she puts it. She's like, I cannot believe the price people, of course, it's how they make their living, but she's like, I can't believe the price people pay to store junk.
Yeah. So one of the YouTube videos I did, I cleaned out the house and the storage shed, but they'd also purchased another house that was completely full that I didn't know about until I was finished with the house I was currently doing. So they purchased a complete house to continue storing.
I
And
can't
they
get my
have
brain around
4
that.
kids that don't know that they have an additional house that they're going to have to clean out.
Really?
Mhm. But clutter is just such an emotional, heavy burden. And
Yes.
it's
There
just
is.
easier. Go ahead.
I have been doing some research over another subject I'm about to tackle, but
Hmm.
I came up with something that I was like, that means something to what Renee deals with. And the book is by Mark Brackett, and it's Permission to Feel,
Hmm.
Feel, Feel. Feelings are a form of information. They're like news reports from inside our psyche, sending messages about what's going on the inside and the unique person that each of us is in response to whatever internal, external events we are experiencing. Bottom line, kind of what Renee said, she's talking about these emotions, and you get stuck in
Hmm.
these emotions. And those emotions are really messages. What are they sending you?
Hmm.
Because I have dealt with some of that in my own life. I have someone in my family who started just all of a sudden collecting, and it was like Beanie Babies and some other stuff, and they're
Hmm.
just everywhere. Like everywhere you would look, there would be a storage, with these
Yep.
glass, the glass on it and lights with all these Beanie Babies in it that aren't really worth
And they think they're
anything.
worth something. They really do
Yes.
think they're worth something.
Yes, the way she would just touch them and oh my goodness. And you could tell it was about much more than
Mhm.
that Beanie Baby. It was trying to feel something.
Well, and they also feel like they're leaving them with stuff that has value, but it really doesn't have value. And no one really wants their stuff. It doesn't, they already have their own house. And so they feel like, if I call them clutter scapegoats, they're, they just, here, Christy, you have this because I know it's going to a good home and you don't want it. And I always say no is a complete sentence. It's okay to say no to your parents or whoever's trying to give you their hoard, and to establish boundaries. Just no is a complete sentence. And
I think that
you don't have room for this stuff. There's just many ways to say it.
that is very powerful, Renee. I love that. No is a complete sentence.
Mhm.
And these, I don't know about other people's relatives that have the hoarding issue, but I know the relative I have that has a hoarding issue, very good at guilt and manipulation.
Oh, yes.
So anytime I would try to say no, they would think of all the reasons to circumvent what I was saying.
Hmm.
So I love what Renee said, because every time I would give this person an excuse, they would have a reason of why my excuse wasn't valid,
Hmm.
which we all
Yeah.
know, yes, I didn't need to have a valid excuse. But you also don't want to hurt your relatives' feelings.
Hmm.
But if you just say no, kindly, no, no, thank you.
No, thank you. Yep.
No,
And
thank
even if you say
you.
no, thank you, I don't have the space, they'll find space for you. So don't give them
Yes.
that extra. They'll find it for you.
Yes, that is, I love, that is absolutely true, because I
Mhm.
tried that. I tried all the things and finally was just like,
Mhm.
no, not doing it. But yes, trying to be nice. And I did say, no, I just don't have the space for that. At the time, we were active duty military, and for any of those watching, you're limited to how much weight you can take.
Mhm.
So I try to use that as an excuse, and there was always a way around that. Um,
Yep.
so I love what Renee said. No, it's just a complete sentence, and I think that people need to start using it in all areas of their life, not just on
Yep.
the hoarding.
Well, and you talked about a family member that has hoarding issues, and my mom did. So I believe we inherit some of the hoarding trauma from our parents or who are family members, because it's just more than OCD. They've had one traumatic life event, and or maybe multiple. So they're usually compulsive shoppers, or the need to collect or keep those material objects that serve as coping mechanisms for grief and loss and post-traumatic stress, which you probably see in the readings.
I do. I absolutely do see that. I see, so much of that. And the subject I'm going to be tackling in future podcasts. Now we have multiple different visitors on to talk about it. So if there's anyone out there listening that you are knowledgeable on what I'm about to say, please contact me. But it's just permission to feel is what it's going to be about. And how do we process our emotions? Because this hoarding, from what I have witnessed with people, and it's what you are also confirming, is people are stuck in their emotions. They don't know how to process those emotions in a healthy manner. So they're reaching outside to shop, to gather things, because it gives them that release they're looking for.
I also, when the hoard is around them and up to the ceilings, it's a protection mode as well, that the outside can't get in.
Gosh,
So,
and just you saying that made me feel claustrophobic.
and every time I'm done cleaning a hoard, I come home and clean out more. And just like, I'm not leaving this for the kids. I literally have my boxes. You talked about what my house looks like. My boxes have stuff in them, and I take a video of it. And then I put a barcode on the front so I know what's in it. And I scan, or a QR code, and I scan it on my phone. The video pops up, and I know what's in it.
I am freaking amazed with you right now, Renee. That is so phenomenal. Okay, I want everyone listening to this to just think about that for a moment. Can you imagine going into your storage unit? And on the best days, I have it labeled with a Sharpie. have a general idea of what's in it. But can you imagine having a QR code on there, scanning the QR code, and then up on your phone pops exactly what is in that box? I never thought about doing that. Oh my goodness, y'all have got to call Renee.
It's phenomenal.
Y'all have got to call Renee. That is so phenomenal. And you know what else? Outside of the hoarding, as I have thought about, my husband has a shop area. I promise you, we have a multiple same tools, because you go to do a project and you can't find the said tool. You don't have half a day to dig through your garage to find that tool. It's easier to run down to Menards and buy the $20 or $25 tool, whatever it is, to finish your project. So I'm sure everyone here can account for that. And I'm sure I'm the same way when it comes to my kitchen items. So I'm not picking on my husband, just so you know. I do the same thing.
So it's funny that you talked about tools. So I helped a gentleman who used to own a large company, 2,500 employees all across the United States, sold his company, retired. And anytime he would go from one plant to the other, if he didn't have a drill, wrenches, screwdrivers, he would just go out and buy them. So it took me several days to organize his tools and then reorganize them into a larger room. And I want to say he had 15 drills and over 200 or 300 screwdrivers. And he didn't call it hoarding, he called it inventory. I have inventory.
A fancy word for
Yes.
hoarding. I
But
love
he's
that.
like, no one,
I think
no
I'm
one
going to
ever
start
had me
using
organized.
that.
It's not a hoard, it's inventory.
I'm
For
going
when I
to
need
start
it.
using that. It's not a hoard, Renee. I have inventory, honey.
Yep.
Don't you know?
Well, and it's inventory if it's, I told him it's inventory if it's not opened and you know it's there and you can easily find it. Because I took it into the perspective of, because he was a cement manufacturer, he went out and said, okay, here's where all my stuff is, because the employees organized it for him. I said, so now we're doing the same here.
Very good. Absolutely. I love that. It's only inventory if it's not opened and you know where it is.
Yeah.
And
Because if it's under 6 feet of trash, that's not inventory.
right now, I want everyone to go back also and think about, we have now touched on how much money hoarding actually costs. And not just, yes, in emotional space and, energy that it takes out of your life, but also in straight up money. And the purchasing of the object and the storing of the object. And, I was a financial planner, and there is, I used to think about that with my girlfriend, because people would, to rent a decent sized storage unit is easily $100 a month.
Easily.
If you have a couple of them, a couple $100 a month, and heaven forbid you've now bought a house.
Or a house.
Yes. The amount of monetary value that you can leave to your kids, you can send grandbabies to college if you take that money and then put it into a financial product that is going to then leave a legacy behind.
Yep. And so the kids talk about us going on this cruise and not potentially leaving a legacy behind. And we're like, no, we're skiing, spending our kids' inheritance. We call it skiing.
We
like, what?
We say that too, yeah. And it's true. We are, if I knew exactly how long people always, yes, I do have an idea of how long I'm going to live. I know as a psychic medium, people say, don't you know? I do have an idea. I do not know the exact day and year, but I do have a vague idea of how long I'm going to live. But I know people are afraid to outlive their money, which is also an issue. But if you have a good planner, if you do some good financial planning, and I know that people think they don't have the money to do those types of things, to go on the trips. Now you think about how many trips you can take with the amount for a couple $100 a month that you're spending on storage units.
Yeah, or more.
Or more. And yes, you're absolutely right. Or more, because I know for one thing, they have gone up to store things.
Because not only the storage unit, but what they're buying to put in the storage unit.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. And then our reason for the trip is also, so you have in your retirement years, you have your go-go years, your slow-go years, and then your no-go years. And so the purpose for vlogging all of that is in our slow and no-go years, we can look at all the videos and say, I remember when.
I do. I think that's beautiful because I was thinking the other day, my husband and I took a trip to Ireland earlier in the
Oh,
year. It
nice.
was
Hmm.
phenomenal, beautiful. Spent 10 days over there, did so many wonderful things. And someone was asking me if I had gone to a certain part of Ireland and I could not remember. And that was just back in March. Because when
Hmm.
you're on it, you're go, go, go. But thankfully, I had taken all of my TikTok followers with me. So I have all these TikToks.
Nice.
But you're right. If I didn't have some kind of visual, I would not have remembered where we went.
Hmm.
It's such a blur when you're on a big trip like that.
Oh yeah.
So now I
But you
know
go ahead.
I was going to go on to a lot of people feel like, and I know you touched on it in some of the notes you sent me, that they are betraying their parents when they get rid of their items.
Hmm.
And I do want to touch on a little bit of what you said, that it's not about you're not betraying your parents. Just because you don't love their stuff doesn't mean you don't love the person.
And I don't think the parents ever meant for their clutter to be a burden to you. I mean, no one ever says, I'm leaving all this stuff to my family because I want it to be a burden. They don't do that.
You're right. And I can attest to that 100%
Mhm.
from the spirits I have brought through and the apologies they issue. It was
Mhm.
just the other day I had a gentleman step forward. His house had been in quite the state when he passed. His
Mhm.
granddaughter had bought the house. And I didn't realize all this when the reading started. I just knew the grandfather was apologizing for her having been ill. And that was quite confusing to me. How could her grandfather, who had passed over and was in spirit, was apologizing for her to be ill? Because of all of his hoarding and the lack of circulation in the house, black mold had started to grow.
Oh, that's the worst.
And they didn't realize it. Everyone had been getting sick in the house, and they didn't realize it until, I don't know, remember what she said they had done, but they popped a baseboard off to look, and behind
Mhm.
there they saw all this black mold that was up behind the walls, had gone up under the floors.
Yeah.
And it was because that was an area that had just been so inundated and stacked and stacked and stacked. Moisture had
Mhm.
gotten in there, and no one realized what was really behind the walls.
Yeah. It was gonna be a mess.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
so I can definitely attest that they're just not thinking clearly, and they do not think when you get
Yep.
rid of their stuff that you're getting rid of their love. You know what I hear most coming from spirits is they want you to be joyful. They
Mhm.
want you to live in joy. That is the overwhelming. Even if you had a knockdown drag out with someone and the next day they pass,
Yep.
nope, they don't care.
Yep.
When you cross over to heaven, you do not care. You don't have any of that animosity. You just want nothing but joy and happiness for those left behind.
And you've loved your parents while they were here, but you've hated their stuff, and that's where people have the guilt. And so you talked about having joy. When I have them pick up items, I'm like, does this give you a memory? Is this memory theirs or is it yours? And does this memory bring you joy or did it bring them joy? And they're
Yes,
like, oh, that's their memory. That was their trip. I didn't go on it with them, so it can go.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Because if you, that's a very good way of putting it. Because later, if you pick up that seashell or whatever it is,
Mhm.
and you bring it home or you keep it and you pick up that seashell, if there's no emotion attached to it, it's just a
It's
dust
just a
collector.
seashell. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I hate dusting, so I try not to have many knickknacks.
I do. I don't know if you can tell, I have some crystals and I do love me some crystals, but
Mhm.
I stopped buying them because I just don't like dusting them. Isn't it?
Or people are like, "Oh, you love crystals, so let me buy you 400 more." It's like, "No, I just wanted 1 or 2." And so it goes back to, "No, thank you. I don't need 600 more or 400 more."
Absolutely. You know, we
Mhm.
and our family have started um, doing the like today is actually my baby girl's birthday. Um, and
Awesome.
she's not such a baby. She's 23 today, but she is still in nursing school. So we still do the bulk of her support. And she just wants to go shopping and get a new outfit. She had her friend take her to dinner. We're having just a family. So as they get older, it's more about the experiences. And
Absolutely.
that's what older people want. When I
Mhm.
would go visit my grandmother before she passed, she wanted me to take her out for tacos.
Yeah. She just wants to talk to you. They don't want the stuff.
Correct. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Well, and some
Now,
of the things that you may want to do before you die and leave that next generation and generation of clutter is just pare down and I'm sure there's something on there already. It's like death cleaning. So you start cleaning before you die and get rid of stuff.
mhm, mhm.
Um, but just start paring down what's really important in life. So my in-laws both recently passed away, and they pared it down to just photo albums that they wanted us to have. And the rest is just furniture. I mean, they really did a lot of death cleaning is what I call it.
I love that. And my grandmother actually did a lot of that.
Hmm.
So when you go in her house, it wasn't sparse, but everything around there meant something to her.
Hmm.
And the last few times I visited her, if there was something, she would have me look at her drawer, and she didn't. I'm not talking expensive stuff. I'm talking just, costume type stuff.
Yeah.
Do I want any of it? And she would let me know, Chrissy, I'm going to get rid of this. Do you want any of it? Or if there were some dishes, I'm getting rid of the dishes. Do you want any of it? So she did
Hmm.
ask me, she did ask some of the other grandkids if they wanted things. And if we said no, she was like, all right, I'm getting rid of it. But now I do
Well,
want
and
to
that's a
address,
great way to get people involved and family members saying, do you want it or not? Because most people just don't want to talk about death. It's too hard for them to address, and they think they're immortal, and they're not.
no, yeah, no, your soul is. But your avatar body that you're currently in,
Yeah.
no, it does have an expiration date. Now, that is something I do want to address with you. Is I have seen, not in this job as a psychic medium and in my financial planning job, where people will stop talking to each other over someone going in and cleaning out a house and getting rid of
Hmm.
something that they wanted. And it could be a
Yep.
teapot. I kid you not. I've seen families not talk over teapots.
Yep.
So now how do people, make that not happen?
So you want to involve the family right away. I've created private Facebook pages and posted items there and say first come, first serve. I've given everybody 2 weeks notice saying, you choose, you come pick it up. What's left in the garage will go to a sale or charity. I give them the accountability to act on the items instead of me running around saying, do you want this? Do you want this?
Mhm.
Um, but you don't want your children to have the burden of stuff of previous generations plus all of your stuff. So, for instance, when my father in law passed away, we found, I don't know, 15 death certificates. It's like, what do I do with this? They're already registered, they're already up in Ancestry. Do we need them? No, we don't.
Mhm. Mhm.
But creating the Facebook page and I have like group chats with some of the houses that I've cleaned out. I'm like, give me the family members that are responsible that if what they want or don't want.
I
It
am
also helps to have a third party do it so they're not emotionally attached.
Yes, I was going to say, I love everything that you just said. The Facebook group is phenomenal because it's in your face. Yes, do people, if you tell them come and you have 2 weeks to get here, before you know it, the 2 weeks is over, they haven't been there, and they're like, oh, wait, don't get rid of this stuff yet, I still want to come, I have this going on. And so they make
Yeah.
excuses to extend it. And if you go ahead and get rid of it, but that Facebook group, that's phenomenal.
Hmm. Yep. They can see the pictures of like, oh, that got ruined. I thought I wanted it, but I don't want it anymore. Or there
Right.
was black mold. I had a house that I was painting all the walls and cleaning it out because this couple purchased the uh, familia home, and his parents were hoarders, and so when they moved into a retirement home, they gutted the house, and we got up to the office area, and you were talking about black mold. I went to take a picture down. I touched the wall and it moved, and it was an outside wall, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh no.
no.
And I tore it
Yes.
off, and I'm like, there's black mold everywhere. It cost them $30,000 to fix that wall. And
Yes.
that was before inflation and all the prices went up. But the insurance would not cover it because they bought the house without a realtor, trusting the parents and in laws that nothing
Mhm.
was wrong with the house. And they said, nope, you took it as is. So
Mhm,
that's another thing, is to be careful of when you're buying a hoarder home, make sure it's been
mhm,
disclosed that it's been a hoarder home, because it may be rat infested, ant infested, termites,
mhm.
and black mold.
And, that was a situation of this granddaughter. The grandfather passed and just kind of bought it. There was no realtor involved, really no lawyer, just basic law work where,
Right.
transfer title, all that.
It'll
And
cost
so
you the most.
yeah, and that's where she was with it. There was no repercussions because
Hmm.
the estate had taken the money. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was very true. Now, I do want to talk about, how do people get in touch with you? Do you come and help them? Do you, I know everyone's probably saying, why is she doing this podcast? Why? Now we've talked about it. How do we
Hmm.
fix it? How do we get help? We have issues that we need help with.
So I actually clean hoarders' homes for free, as long as I can record it on YouTube and put it up there. I don't mention the names or the location, but I just enjoy it doing so much. I do it for free because it helps them declutter their home, declutter their emotional baggage, and free up space to have a fulfilling life. And have some people regress back to hoarding a little bit, but not to the extent they were before, because they so appreciate their new lease on life and how much better it looks.
And so now what Renee is talking about, there's a couple of different scenarios of cleaning up hoarding. Sometimes it
Hmm.
is after the person has passed
Hmm.
and she's helping the ones left
A
behind.
state.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
estate take care of it. But also I have seen it in where they will call Renee because they will wake up one day and realize, this is not the way I want to live, but at that point they're
Hmm.
overwhelmed and they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And so they are still living and will call Renee. And so I can imagine if my relative who is still living, who does this hoarding, if they called me and said, Christy, can I have some help? I would not know where to start. I would be calling Renee so fast her head would spin.
Thank you. And the people that do charge to clean up hoards is 5, 10, $15,000, depending on how bad it really is.
And I have to chuckle because, as y'all know, psychic medium. And as Renee says, I do this for free. I know that I know one day she will be charging. It's going to get to the point where she will have no other choice. And yes, I know she does it right now as a labor of love. She does it because it
Mhm.
fulfills her soul. She does it because it sends love and light into the world, because it really changes people's hearts when you can change the way they live.
And they're
But
so grateful.
oh my
And I've done it
goodness.
with love and empathy and consideration for their feelings, and how they're dealing with what's going on
I do
with
want
their trauma.
everyone to take note of that. Not all cleanup companies are created equal. And some, I have heard some stories of them coming in and it's so business like, nope, you don't need this. Nope, get rid of it. Whereas
Yeah.
Renee takes it, she helps you process the emotions behind it.
Hmm.
As y'all heard, she wouldn't give someone an object, say, no, what memory does this bring up? Where does this take you? Because you have to have healing along with
Hmm.
cleaning this hoarding up. You don't want to have some PTSD because you got rid of all of your mom's stuff and you think that she's going to come back and haunt you over it, which I know she's not, but
Yep. I do have another story. So I was helping a friend that I had no idea of what I was getting into, but she was living with her mom, and she's like, I'm taking care of her. My dad passed away. I'm in my childhood bedroom. I mean, it was a hoard. And she goes, can you help me clean it up? I said, sure. So it took a couple days. We cleaned it up. And then she's like, well, could you go to the basement and help clean up some stuff down there? I'm like, no problem. I get to a file cabinet and I open up the drawer and I was disgusted. It was nothing but her childhood underwear that the dad had kept as trophies. And so I mean, I still have the chills to this day. She had no idea that he kept those trophies, nor did the mom. And so we did a ritual burning of all her childhood underwear. And she never told her mom what her dad had done. So when she had to move back into the house to take care of her mom, that's when the hoard started, because
Mhm.
that was the room where everything started. And she never told anybody till I opened up the file cabinet drawer. I mean,
How
I still have the chills.
how releasing for her,
Hmm.
and I will, a couple of things I will say for people who come for, sometimes people are afraid what's going to come up in readings. I will tell you that I will have people come forward and own their stuff if the client is ready to hear it. So, because I was about to tell a story and I don't want to freak everyone out, that just confirmation. So part of her being, a part of her had just been hidden and she had not been allowed to talk about it, this very traumatic incident that had happened to her. And the fact that now it is out there in the open. Now, if Renee had not done that, been there, it could have been swept on the rug, just thrown away, trashed the whole filing cabinet. But Renee intuitively stepped into that and she knew the rat's nest that she had opened up. Instantly, you knew what that meant.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, we're able to process it. Didn't just throw it away, you burned it. I love that. So
Ritual.
that is the gift you get when you come to Renee, is you get the processing of emotions and healing of emotions along with cleaning up the environment.
Yep.
And yes, right now Renee does it for free. She does require, rightly so, you to pay for her travel if it's outside of where she lives. Now, do you mind saying where you're located, Renee?
I'm in Georgia.
Okay. So
So.
of course, the farther away from Georgia, the more it's going to cost, but rightly so. She is currently free. I have a feeling that's going to change in a few years, but right now she's free, except you do have to pay her travel. And don't be afraid to call her, or to email her, I should say, and her email will be in our in the verbiage associated with this podcast. Go check out her YouTube channel. I'm telling you, I felt fulfilled just watching them. When the YouTube channel is Renee Shull. Is Renee Shull Hoarding or just Renee Shull?
Just Renee Shull.
And when you search it, though, when it comes up, you instantly see videos and there's people's homes and it says before and after, so you know exactly what you're getting. It's fulfilling just to watch. Like you're like, oh my goodness, where do you even start? And then you'll see Renee cleaning it, but she does it, it's one of those fast forward,
time lapse.
yes, time lapse ones. And so you're not sitting there watching her clean for 15 hours, but it's time lapse. It's very nice. So do you have any last, I do also want to remind everyone, please do the binder that Renee showed earlier. Can you mind showing us that again?
Sure.
That's what it looks like. It has all of your medical information. Just so, if you got in an accident today, right now, if I got in an accident, my children have no idea what I'm allergic to, what medications I'm on, which are very few, but still I do take some.
What medical conditions you have or don't have.
Absolutely. And when I was very young in my 20s, and this is terrible, I had an ovary removed. To this day, I will go in there and I see you had an ovary removed. Which one? I have no idea. I don't remember. I was in my 20s. I had kids after that. I didn't really care.
Yep.
So those are the types of things that those surgeries, medications, dental work is huge. Is in that binder. So
especially as you get older.
Yes, because you don't remember. I don't remember what happened yesterday. I don't remember what I had for lunch. So you can email her, shullrenee@gmail. Again, it will be in the verbiage of this. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for us, Renee?
Just don't leave your clutter to the next generation.
I can attest to that. Trust me. I am in the business of past relatives, transitioned relatives, and people are overwhelmed enough with grief when they have a loved one that passes. Just with the making the funeral arrangements, processing their grief, everything that goes along with losing a loved one. And then to be faced with the burden of trying to go through all their stuff, it's just too much to ask.
It's horrible.
I want to thank everyone for joining me today. And I want to thank Renee for being here. Thank you so much, Renee.
Thank you so much, Christy.
So if anyone has any questions, please email me. My email is christygodwin111@gmail.com. And I hope to see everyone around.